My beloved child, listen carefully because there are moments that arrive so gently that only a heart willing to wait can recognize them. Today is not an ordinary day, even if it appears no different from every other day you have lived. While your eyes have been fixed on the questions that still remain unanswered, something has been quietly unfolding beyond everything you can currently see. Do not skip this moment, because what you are about to hear carries a meaning that has been growing long before you realized it. There is someone whose heart has not forgotten what many people would have dismissed. While life continued moving forward with its usual rhythm, while responsibilities demanded attention and ordinary days came and went, one thought continued returning with remarkable consistency. It never demanded attention. It never arrived with loud emotion. It simply returned again and again, quietly finding its place inside a heart that could no longer pretend your presence had become ordinary. Your soulmate has been carrying questions they never expected to ask themselves. At first, they believed time would slowly erase every feeling that remained. They assumed distance would silence every memory. They hoped routine would replace reflection. Yet something unexpected continued happening. Instead of fading, the quiet appreciation they carried for you became even clearer. They found themselves remembering not the extraordinary moments, but the ordinary ones. A conversation that once seemed simple suddenly carried greater meaning. A smile that lasted only a moment continued living inside their memory. Even your quiet strength during difficult seasons remained with them far longer than they ever imagined. Sometimes the heart remembers what the mind tries to leave behind. Stay until the end because every passing moment is revealing another piece of a story that neither of you has fully understood. One peaceful afternoon, your soulmate found themselves sitting in thoughtful silence. There was nothing unusual about the day. People continued speaking. Cars continued passing. Life continued exactly as it always had. Yet inside their heart, something gently shifted. Without planning to, they began thinking about you. Not because someone mentioned your name. Not because an old photograph appeared. Not because they were searching for the past. They simply realized that whenever life became quiet enough, their thoughts naturally found their way back to you. That realization surprised them. They asked themselves a question they had avoided for a very long time. Why does this keep happening? The answer did not come immediately. Instead, another memory quietly appeared. They remembered the peace they once felt simply knowing you were doing well. They remembered hoping your burdens would become lighter. They remembered wishing that life would bring you opportunities even when they had no way of knowing whether those hopes would ever reach you. Those thoughts had never asked for recognition. They simply continued appearing with gentle consistency. The more they reflected, the more they understood something they had overlooked. Their concern for your happiness had never disappeared. It had simply become quieter. And sometimes the quietest feelings become the strongest because they are no longer trying to prove themselves. They simply remain. Don't skip because another realization is waiting just beyond this moment. Later that same day, someone close to your soulmate noticed the thoughtful expression resting across their face. "You've been unusually quiet lately," they said gently. Your soulmate smiled politely. "I'm just thinking." Thinking about what? The question seemed simple. Yet the answer refused to arrive as quickly as expected. After a long pause, your soulmate quietly admitted something they had never spoken aloud before. I keep wondering whether some people are meant to leave our lives forever, or whether certain paths quietly find their way back together when the time is right. Those words settled into the silence. The listener didn't interrupt. Instead, they simply watched with patient understanding. They had seen this expression before. Not once. Not twice. But many times over the past several months. Each time your soulmate spoke about the future, your presence somehow appeared between the spaces of their thoughts. Never dramatically. Never forcefully. Always naturally. As though your story had quietly remained connected to theirs without either of you fully realizing it. The listener smiled with gentle understanding. "Can I ask you something?" Your soulmate nodded. "When you imagine your future, why does the same person always seem to appear?" The question carried unexpected weight. Your soulmate lowered their eyes. For the first time, they stopped trying to avoid the answer. Because deep inside, they already knew. The future they hoped for somehow felt incomplete whenever they imagined it without you. Not because they believed life could only be meaningful through one person, but because your presence had quietly become connected with the peace they continued searching for. That realization changed everything. Not through excitement. Not through dramatic emotion. Through honesty. Sometimes honesty arrives so softly that we almost miss it. Stay until the end because something even more meaningful is beginning to unfold. Your soulmate remained silent for several moments before speaking again. "I don't know whether life is leading us back together," they admitted. "But I know something inside me never truly stopped hoping that somehow our paths might cross again." The listener didn't respond immediately. Instead, they looked out the window as though remembering something from long ago. Then they quietly smiled. "You know, I've been wanting to tell you something." Your soulmate looked up. "What is it?" The listener folded their hands together before answering. "I wasn't sure whether it meant anything at first. So I kept it to myself. But after everything you've shared today, I think you deserve to hear it." Your soulmate felt an unexpected stillness settle over their heart. Every ordinary sound around them seemed to disappear. Not because anything dramatic had happened, but because they sensed these next words carried a quiet importance. The listener spoke carefully. "Sometimes life separates people, not because the story has ended, but because both hearts still have something important to learn before they meet again." Those words rested gently between them. No one hurried to explain them. No one rushed to add more. Because certain truths become stronger when they are allowed to remain still. Your soulmate slowly closed their eyes. For reasons they couldn't fully explain, those words felt strangely familiar. Almost as though their own heart had been whispering the same message for much longer than they realized. The room remained peaceful after those words had been spoken. Nothing extraordinary happened in the next few moments. No sudden interruption arrived. No dramatic announcement broke the silence. Yet somehow, everything already felt different. Sometimes the greatest changes begin so quietly that they cannot be measured until much later. Your soulmate remained thoughtful, allowing every sentence to settle gently within their heart. They weren't searching for immediate answers anymore. Instead, They found themselves appreciating the calm that had slowly replaced the uncertainty they had carried for so long. Don't skip, because another important piece of this journey is quietly waiting for you. The listener watched your soulmate with gentle understanding before asking another question. When you think about them now, they asked softly, what is the very first feeling that comes to your heart? Your soulmate expected a quick answer. Instead, they found only silence. Not because they had nothing to say. Because every possible answer somehow felt too small. After a long pause, they smiled almost without realizing it. Peace, they whispered. The listener nodded as though they had expected exactly that answer. Not excitement? Your soulmate slowly shook their head. Not fear? Again, they shook their head. Then what makes you so certain? Your soulmate looked toward the quiet light entering through the window. I don't know how to explain it. It's simply the only person I can think about without my heart feeling restless. I don't imagine perfection. I don't imagine a life without challenges. I simply imagine walking through those challenges with them. Those words rested gently inside the room. The listener smiled warmly. That tells me something. Your soulmate looked up with quiet curiosity. It tells me your heart has stopped chasing a dream. It has started recognizing a person. The sentence lingered longer than either of them expected. Your soulmate replayed those words again and again. Recognizing a person. Not chasing an idea. For so long they had wondered whether their feelings were built upon memories that time had made more beautiful than they really were. Yet now another possibility quietly appeared. Perhaps they hadn't been holding on to the past. Perhaps they had been protecting something genuine. Stay until the end because the next realization reaches even deeper. The listener continued speaking. Have you noticed something else? What? Whenever someone asks about your future, you never describe success first. You never begin with achievements. You never speak about possessions. You always hope the people you care about are part of whatever future you're building. Your soulmate lowered their eyes. It was true. Without ever planning it, every hope they carried somehow included kindness before accomplishment. Connection before recognition. Peace before success. And somehow, whenever those hopes appeared, you were there. Not standing at the center of every thought, but quietly present in every meaningful one. That realization surprised even them. Sometimes love is not discovered through one unforgettable moment. Sometimes it quietly reveals itself through the direction every ordinary thought continues traveling. Don't skip because something beautiful is still unfolding. The listener reached for a notebook resting nearby. Its pages contained nothing extraordinary. Simple reflections. Small observations. Moments most people would have forgotten. They carefully turned several pages before stopping. I wrote something down months ago. Your soulmate looked curious. You did? The listener smiled. I didn't even know why I wrote it then. But today I understand. They gently read the sentence. Every time this person speaks about tomorrow, someone from yesterday quietly walks beside every hope they describe. The room became still. Your soulmate searched their memory. When did I say that? You didn't. The listener smiled again. I noticed it. You never realized you were doing it. Those words settled deeply. Your soulmate hadn't been carrying memories because they refused to move forward. They had been carrying them because those memories continued shaping the kind of future they hoped to build. There is a difference. One keeps a person trapped. The other quietly teaches the heart what truly matters. Stay until the end because another unexpected conversation is about to begin. Later that evening, after the two of them had gone their separate ways, your soulmate found themselves walking beneath a peaceful evening sky. Nothing unusual happened. The streets looked ordinary. People continued their conversations. Children laughed in the distance. The world carried on exactly as it always had. Yet inside their heart, something had become wonderfully calm. For the first time in a very long while, they stopped asking, "What if I never see them again?" Instead, another question quietly appeared. What if life has been preparing both of us in ways neither of us can yet understand? That thought didn't create impatience. It created hope. Gentle hope. The kind that doesn't demand immediate answers. The kind willing to trust what cannot yet be seen. As they continued walking, another memory quietly returned. They remembered one particular conversation with you. It hadn't been extraordinary. No remarkable promises had been made. No unforgettable declarations had filled the air. Yet somehow, it remained one of the clearest memories they possessed. Why? Because of how they felt afterward. They remembered leaving that conversation feeling lighter. More peaceful. More patient. More hopeful. Even years later, that feeling had never completely disappeared. Sometimes hearts remember peace long after they forget the exact words that created it. Don't skip because the next realization quietly changes everything. The following morning, the listener happened to meet someone who knew both of you. The conversation began casually. Nothing important seemed about to happen. Ordinary greetings. Simple questions. The kind of conversation people have every day. Then, almost unexpectedly, your name entered the discussion. Only for a moment. Just one passing sentence. The listener watched carefully. Although your soulmate wasn't even present, something still became beautifully clear. The other person smiled naturally while speaking about you. They mentioned your quiet kindness, your patience, the way you continued encouraging others without expecting recognition. The listener remained thoughtful. Another piece quietly fell into place. Perhaps there had always been something about your character that left a lasting impression on those willing to notice. Not loud confidence. Not constant attention. Simply consistency. And consistency has a remarkable way of reaching hearts more deeply than temporary excitement ever can. Later that day, the listener found your soulmate again. I learned something today. Your soulmate smiled gently. What happened? I spoke with someone who knows them. Immediately, your soulmate became still. There was no panic. No desperate curiosity. Only quiet attention. What did they say? The listener answered carefully. They never spoke about achievements. They never spoke about appearances. They spoke about kindness. They spoke about quiet strength. They spoke about someone who continues doing good even when nobody notices. Your soulmate closed their eyes for a brief moment. A peaceful smile slowly appeared. That sounds exactly like them. The listener noticed something remarkable. There wasn't the slightest attempt to exaggerate. No effort to create an ideal image. Only quiet appreciation for the person you truly were. And perhaps that is one of the clearest signs that affection has matured. It no longer depends on fantasy. It rests comfortably inside reality. Stay until the end because one final thought from today's conversation may remain with you long after these words have ended. The listener spoke again. I've been wondering about something. What is it? If life truly gave both of you another opportunity, what would you do differently? Your soulmate didn't answer immediately. This question deserved honesty. After several moments they quietly smiled. I wouldn't rush. I wouldn't spend so much time worrying about things I cannot control. I would listen more. I would appreciate ordinary moments more. I would stop assuming tomorrow is guaranteed. And I would make sure they never had to wonder whether they mattered. Those words filled the silence with quiet sincerity. The listener looked at your soulmate with genuine warmth. You know, I think that's exactly why hope is returning. Your soulmate looked surprised. Why? Because the person speaking today is not the same person who once believed fear deserved the final word. You've changed. You've become someone who values patience more than pressure. Understanding more than assumption. Gratitude more than regret. The words touched something deep within your soulmate. Perhaps the greatest miracle wasn't simply that they still cared. Perhaps the miracle was the person they had quietly become while carrying those feelings with honesty. Outside, another ordinary day continued unfolding. The sun slowly moved across the sky. People hurried toward their destinations. Life remained wonderfully ordinary. Yet somewhere beyond everything either of you could presently see, another quiet chapter was already beginning. And neither of you yet realized just how gently those separate paths were moving toward a moment that would make every lesson, every season of waiting, and every act of quiet faith feel beautifully worthwhile. My beloved child, before this moment comes to an end, let your heart become still for just a little while. Not because every question has been answered, but because peace does not always arrive after certainty. Sometimes it arrives when you finally choose to trust that every season has carried a purpose. If God is leading your soulmate back toward you, it will never require fear to hold it together. What is guided by His wisdom is strengthened through patience, shaped by grace, and protected by perfect timing. Perhaps your greatest miracle is not that someone is thinking about you today. Perhaps it is that both of your hearts have been quietly transformed while you were apart. Every lesson, every disappointment, every unanswered prayer has been preparing you to love with greater kindness, greater understanding, and greater humility than before. Do not allow impatience to convince you that heaven has forgotten your story. Seeds planted by God often grow beneath the surface long before anyone sees the first sign of life. What appears silent is not always inactive. What appears delayed is not always denied. As your soulmate continues walking their own path, they are learning lessons that only their journey could teach them. And as you continue walking yours, God is shaping parts of your character that will bless every relationship He places before you. So instead of asking, "When will everything happen?" ask, "Who is God helping me become while I wait?" That question has the power to bring peace where anxiety once lived. Remember this: genuine love never asks you to abandon hope, but neither does it ask you to abandon wisdom. Continue choosing kindness. Continue growing in faith. Continue becoming the person God created you to be, whether your next chapter begins tomorrow or further down the road. And if your paths are meant to cross again, let that meeting be marked not by regret over the past, but by gratitude for everything God accomplished during the time you could not yet understand. Walk forward with confidence, not because you know every detail of tomorrow, but because the one who holds tomorrow is already walking beside you today. May your heart remain gentle. May your faith remain steady. And may you never forget that God's timing has never arrived too early and has never arrived too late. If this message encouraged your heart, take a quiet moment to thank God for His guidance. Trust Him with what you cannot yet see, and let hope continue to grow one faithful step at a time. Until next time, may the peace of God guard your heart, strengthen your spirit, and lead you exactly where you are meant to be. Amen.